All right, my name is Diane Westerfield, and I'm the Electronic Resources and Serials Librarian at Colorado College. Today is Tech Tuesday Library Edition, Newspapers Online for You. We have a wide array of both current and historical newspapers that we subscribe to through Tut Library. They can be used for all kinds of different research purposes. If you're doing research for history, if you're doing content analysis, qualitative analysis, or even researching your own genealogy. So I want to show you two different ways to get to our newspapers. There's multiple routes, but I'm going to show you two different ways, and these are on the handout. If you go to our research guides, and then click on General Guides, scroll down, and we want to go to Newspapers. Our newspaper LibGuide has a broad look at newspapers both online and print as well as microforms. So if you're looking, for instance, for the Colorado Springs Gazette, which we have in microfilm, and we also have the paper, this would be the place to go. Now, if you just want to see only the online newspapers, which is what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to go back. Let's see. Sorry. Trying to get back to the library homepage here. Where we want to go is database by title, and this is on the library's homepage. You can see where my cursor is. This is our A to Z list, or W list of databases and general electronic resources. If you see over on the left side, there's subjects. We can change that. Scroll down, it's an alphabetical list. We want newspapers. And this is going to be a comprehensive list of all the electronic newspapers that we have. Some are collections and some are one-off titles. Are there any questions yet? Okay. So these are arranged alphabetically by title. And you can see we've got a wide array of different things here. What I wanted to talk about first are current newspapers. So if you're looking for coverage of the news that is more recent, we have two databases that are good for that, Access World News and LexisNexis. So I'm just going to go into Access World News. This is a database that we started subscribing to a couple of years ago when Dana Whitmer in Political Science Department, she got a Department of Justice grant to track human trafficking along with two other schools, and they are all using Access World News and searching it in a very particular way. But we realized that this is much easier to use than LexisNexis. So if you are looking for more current coverage, international, domestic, or Colorado, this is a good place to start. And you can see that there's a map that you can click on, or if you want to go, say, state and territory. One issue with Access World News is that it is a little bit slow. I'm just going to tell you that straight off the top. So here's USA Colorado, 95 sources. And you can see the long list. It's actually not just newspapers. There's also transcripts. There's college and university newspapers. There's even some blogs in here. But you get a good selection of Colorado news sources here. And let's see. If we do a search, human trafficking. You can see that these are all limiting to Colorado. We've got it from the Gazette, the Denver Post. And if you actually go into the article, you can see that what we get is the plain text So you're not getting photos or any kind of graphics. It's just the plain text on this particular database. And that's the same with LexisNexis. So are there any questions about Access World News? One other thing that I wanted to say is that I do believe that they have, well, they do, most of the newspapers I think are going to be in English, but there are some non-English news sources. So occasionally there are students looking for news sources in different languages like Spanish or Russian. They may be able to find sources in this particular database. They also have a new feature called Find a Topic. So if students are doing an assignment on, some kind of current topic or concern, they try checking out one of these. So if we go to social issues, elderly abuse. And so now we get some results based on this search. And it looks like they said greater than 500 words and from the past 6 months. So this, makes this a pretty widely useful database. And I'm kind of glad that Professor Whitmer actually kind of forced us to get this database because it's turned out to be really awesome. So I'm going to close this up. Oh, sorry. Oh. Well, it is available off campus, but you will be asked to log in. So I'm just going to open another window to show you what it looks like. The first time in a browsing session, if you're off campus and you try to go to one of our databases, you're going to get a login screen that looks a lot like this. You put in your last name and your Tiger number. It's the long number on the bottom of your gold card with all the digits. And by the way, if you've ever lost your gold card or to have it replaced for some reason, they change the number on the card, but they don't tell the library. So if you run into that problem, please talk to the circulation desk and they can fix it for you. Does that answer your question? Okay. Also, I should just say as a side note, you do need to use the library's links because we're going through the library's proxy server. And if you notice up here, we've got a 0- and a .tiger.coloradocollege.edu. So that's forcing the person's browser to go through our server and authenticate. If you're on campus, you could just randomly Google JSTOR or whatever, and JSTOR will detect the IP address and know that you're a legitimate user. When you're off campus, of course, they're not going to have your IP address, so you have to go through the Tiger server. So don't try to randomly Google stuff. You do have to go through the library's web pages. I know it's a pain, but okay, so back to this list of newspapers. The other current one is LexisNexis. This one is a much more old school kind of database. It's kind of surly and crusty, and, but we do have some professors who are deeply wedded to using this. It's also a lot cheaper than Access World News. And it has some sources that Access World News does not, most notably the New York Times. So for this one, what you want to do is hit advanced search and type in, say, the New York Times. And apply. Now you've got that in your source and say Paris, for instance. This also is not the speediest of databases. And you can see that there's limiters on the side, language, geography, and so on to help you filter through the sources. And it looks like the results are ranked by relevancy, not by date. You can see the results are showing up in bold red. That happens in a lot of these library databases. And this is plain text again, so you're not going to see graphics, photos, or anything like that. And again, it's Access World News and LexisNexis don't all have the same content. Some of it is going to overlap, and some of it is unique. So I would suggest to the average student to start off with Access World News and then go to LexisNexis if they really need to, or to look at the New York Times. The LexisNexis also has legal sources of information and more business and company info. Okay, so that's it for the super current stuff. We also have a lot of historical newspapers, and they can actually be really interesting to look at. And they range in size from super slick databases from large library companies like vendors to little mom and pop shops like this Accessible Archives. It's a little mom and pop database. Again, it's just the plain full text, except that they do have the illustrations from Godey's Ladies book. So if you ever want to look at like women in hoop skirts, this is the database to go to. This is also really good for Civil War research. I'm going to go back to this tab because the coolest one that I like to look at, I'm just scrolling down here, ProQuest Historical Newspapers. This will search simultaneously the Atlanta Constitution, the Chicago Tribune, the Los Angeles Times, and the New York Times. So you're getting kind of regional coverage, searching all four at the same time. Oops. Sorry about that. I'm going to go just into the New York Times. I'm going to have to check that link later. Up at the top, I can change this. Let's see. Used to be able to change this anyway to search. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this set up so we can search just the historical newspapers on the ProQuest platform. Okay. Atlanta, Chicago, New York Times. Okay, so now I'm just searching those four databases, and I'm going to go back into advanced search. And one of the cool things that I like to look at, just me personally as a bird watcher, I mean, there's all kinds of cool historical things you can search in this. As a bird watcher, I am curious about the passenger pigeon, which is a bird that went extinct. Well, I don't know, I think in the last one died in the earliest 20th century. And what's interesting to search and to look at is you can see the distribution of the articles that were published. And you can see that, you know, way back in the day, we had very, you know, small amount of articles, and then it increased as people realized, you know, that the birds were going extinct after they had, you know, been such huge flocks of them, and we thought they'd last forever. And then people just killed them off like crazy, and then it was like, whoops, they're going extinct. Another cool thing is that this is full text, or I'm sorry, it's full digitization. So we can look at the actual scan of what it looked like back in the day. And so in most cases, you're going to get the photographs, any kind of illustrations, charts, or whatnot. Another one that I find is interesting to look at is bloomers. I don't know if you guys remember that there used to be a time where women were basically not allowed to wear pants in Western culture. And then women's, you know, like early feminists started wearing bloomers, which were these sort of giant blooming pants. And it can be interesting to look, again, at the distribution of the dates here. And you can see that bloomers, I guess, got real popular all around in here. And I've looked at some of these articles by date, and you can see the progression from back when it was considered extremely silly, even rude for a woman to wear bloomers, and then they became more acceptable, and then it became more acceptable for women to wear like actual pants as we know them today. this is just the kind of thing that I find personally interesting. I don't know about you, but I like being able to wear pants. So yeah. All right. Another interesting thing that you can use these sources for is genealogy. You know, as you get older and as your parents get older, they, you know, start doing genealogy. They want you to search the sources that you have access to. And I was doing some research for my mom, and I typed in, this happens to be my paternal great-grandmother. And a lot of my family is from New York City. And guess what? I found a yet another skeleton for the family closet. This great-grandmother of mine accidentally shot her her mother with her brother's service weapon. He was a police officer. We didn't know that before. That was kind of like tucked away. It had been conveniently forgotten. So yeah, well, on my dad's side of the family, yeah, they didn't talk about this kind of thing. So I just find this really interesting. And there's probably all kinds of other ways that you can use these newspaper databases for different types of research. I'm not the history liaison, so I'm not as familiar with those. But are there any questions at this point? What's your angle on that? Are you Are you looking for articles from the United States looking at that, or are you more interested in, because we do have a Latin American newspapers and a Hispanic American newspapers. Um, so if we say Cuba Revolution, and you can see we get a huge amount, so we probably want to limit the date. What was the year on that? Okay, so if we maybe limit, one thing you have to remember is that what people would have called stuff back in the day changes over time. So for instance, remember World War I used to be called the Great War. So you do have to be cognizant of how these things change over time. So it may be that that's not what they called it immediately when it actually happened. But then everybody decided to call it the Cuban Revolution, and then we get a big spike. So I'm going to update. So we get 8,000 results. Let's say mafia. And then we may want to change the document type to just article, because you're going to get ads, book reviews. Excuse me. So yeah, let's click on article. Sure, and you can see that there's quite a lot of bias, obviously, especially I think right after the events happen. If you go more forward in time, you may see attitudes change. So that's another interesting thing, is just looking at how biases change over time. And if you go back to A to Z, we have Hispanic American newspapers, and we have Latin American newspapers. Okay, those only go to 1922 though, so that's not going to help you. But we could go into here. This is on a different platform. So there's something to be aware of, is that the different companies have different capabilities. So let me see. America's historical newspapers. And Hispanic American newspapers. Okay. Revolution. And some of the newspapers in this collection are in English rather than Spanish, so I can see there's some pretty old stuff. If we, dates and eras. Let's see. So yeah, you can see, you know, most of the databases have a lot of limiters that you can apply for or during your search. But yeah, it looks like you're in this particular database. It's probably a lot of it's probably going to be in Spanish. Trying to think if there's anything else I can show you. Oh, if you have any students that are working on, you know, like the Japanese camps, Ethnic American Newspapers has a lot of the newsletters from those internment camps. And you can look at the newspaper titles. And let's see. I'm spelling that right. Is it Amachi? Let's see here. I know they're in here. This is one that I did not search. So go to Colorado. Okay, well, I'm bombing out on that one, but trust me, there are the internment camp newsletters in this particular database, and you can see it goes from 1799 to 1971. So that's about all I wanted to talk about. Are there any other questions? Yeah, correct. Unfortunately, we don't have like a big federated search kind of thing. Yeah, well, what I've been showing you are subscription resources. So even if Google, if a particular database allows itself to be indexed by Google's spider bots or whatever, you wouldn't be able to actually read the actual content. So, and I think a lot of these are actually not indexed by Google or Bing or anything like that. And that's just, you know, the nature of the game. You know, it's capitalism at work. So, for instance, Access World News is about $9,600 a year, and I'm trying to remember what those historical newspapers are. It's got to be over. It's definitely over $10,000 for all four of them a year. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for listening. And apologies again for not being there in person. I'm just too afraid to drive. My snow tires are being put on the car tomorrow. The weather just couldn't wait another couple days. So. All right. Thank you so much. And bye-bye.
You are currently the only person in this conference.